Isaiah McKenzie publicly stating the reason why the Buffalo Bills lost versus the Cincinnati Bengals last year in the playoffs in a punishing way is because we didn't change our route tree for our wide receivers, whereas the Cincinnati Bengals did. Playing in the snow, you know how slippery that field is, not really being able to cut on a dime. You know, your foot might slip out from under you. And in this video, we got to discuss Ken Dorsey. A lot of people blaming Leslie Frazier last year for that loss, but was it Ken Dorsey? Welcome to my channel here, Bills News Consolidated. I want to discuss Isaiah McKenzie's recent statements and how that correlates into Ken Dorsey being a rookie offensive coordinator last year, him entering year 2, and then also Brandon Beane facilitating this offseason to really help our offense. Losing Tremaine Edmonds on defense, only bringing in a few sample pieces on defense. You know, Poona Ford, Taylor Rapp, there's some other guys there too that are going to come in and compete. But I really think the Buffalo Bills splurging on offense here, all these offensive linemen, Dalton Kincaid, Trent Sherfield, Deontay Hardy, doing some things here to help benefit this offense. But how good is an offense if we're not able to adjust to things on the fly? And I think Ken Dorsey did an excellent job of that in 2022, but could still do a little bit better of a job in reading and reacting to what's going on. And growing up in Buffalo, I've been here 35 years, and I think it's very important to understand that when weather conditions happen, you know, you got to change some things up. And to hear that the Buffalo Bills didn't have an extra plan in place there, maybe running different routes for our wide receivers due to the poor weather conditions, I think that is definitely concerning to hear. But I think you have to couple that with just everything that happened last year. I think we were very drained at that point, not only from a player aspect, but from a coaching aspect. And then you just take a look at everything that just unfolded. You know, it's just so crazy to see all the injuries that we had, you know, trying to find our rhythm throughout the season, not really knowing what was going to occur. And Ken Dorsey being in year 1, right? So I really think entering year 2 here, Ken Dorsey being a second-time offensive coordinator, trying to evolve this Brian Daboll offense into our own, having 2 true tight ends on this team at the Buffalo Bills could roll out there at any given time. Trent Sherfield, Khalil Shakir, Deontay Hardy, Gabe Davis, all mixing in there for other weapons for Josh Allen to throw the ball to. And I love it, splurging on that first-round pick for Dalton Kincaid to really help this offense and bolstering this offensive line with Bates, Bucker returning for Bills Mafia, and then McGovern, Edwards, Jarvis. These guys all getting brought back in here. Questenberry's brought back too. So this offensive line is stacked up. So really, you know, the Bills have everything in place to be successful here in 2023. You know, if we struggle this year, I'm really going to have to say it's probably going to boil down to Ken Dorsey, right? I think Ken Dorsey is probably going to have all eyes on him. We know Josh Allen, we know Stephon Diggs, and we know kind of the rumblings going on there with Stephon Diggs, and righteously so. Like, we should be in the Super Bowl. Like, we should not be being stopped. Like, Allen to Diggs should not be stopped, and it's pretty tough. And if they do opt to stop it, we got to have other options. We got to have other second options that Josh Allen can target and throw the ball to. And I really believe people are low on Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis was only 164 yards away from hitting 1,000 yards receiving last year, and he was only 2 touchdowns away from getting double-digit touchdowns. He had 8 receiving touchdowns, and he played hurt. He missed a couple games. Like, Gabe Davis, I'm telling you, I mean, the sky's the limit for Gabe Davis in his year 2, being the first time full perimeter wide receiver, getting 100% of that snap count. Brandon Beane even mentioned that in his press conference. He wants to see how good these players are going to be with higher snap counts, right? And we discussed it in my previous video there, Tyrel Dodson versus Terrell Bernard. Tyrel Dodson had 220 snaps last year for the Buffalo Bills, filling in for Tremaine Edmonds twice, and going pretty well, admirably, Brandon Beane said, for Tyrel Dodson. Then you look at a guy like Tyrel Bernard. Tyrel Bernard only had 110 snaps last year, and he really didn't play against starters. You know, sometimes we had 3 linebackers out there, but it was when the Bills were ahead in games, Terrell Bernard came out there and played. So when you look at the stats, yes, Terrell Bernard statistically, percentage-wise, did a little bit better in pass coverage, okay? He was 85% against the pass in pass coverage, whereas Terrell Dotson was 80% against the pass, but he had double the amount of snaps, and he was going against opposing team starters. So what would Terrell Bernard's stats look like if the roles were flopped from last year? Like if Terrell Bernard was going against starters, and what if Terrell Bernard started in place for Tremaine Edmonds instead of Tyrell Dotson? I don't know if he would have done as well. So you got to keep that all in mind with these players and their snap counts. I think Gabe Davis not really having a sufficient snap count before 2022 and then getting rolled out there in 2022 like he's going to be a full-time starter, pretty tough. And I think he did halfway decent. But this year he's going to be the most prepared that he's ever been. Ken Dorsey's going to be the most prepared that he's ever been. Josh Allen and every single player that is the character and DNA and makeup of every single player on this team. But it's really concerning hearing an ex-wide receiver here talk about Ken Dorsey not changing things up for that snow game, knowing that the Buffalo Bills are really a weather team, that we're going to be dealing with the weather here for an awfully long time, even with this new stadium being built. Very, very concerning to hear that. And I think we definitely need to change things up, especially in those weather games. And maybe having these 2 tight ends, maybe having Damian Harris, Latavius Murray is all part of the recipe that Brandon Beane put on the table for Ken Dorsey. There are no excuses for Ken Dorsey here in year 2. And I really think the Buffalo Bills, man, like with Sean McDermott calling plays here, just think about everything that unfolded here and the priorities. I mean, if you were really going to set priorities for this team, what were the deficiencies last year? Ken Dorsey in year 1, a poor offensive line, maybe not enough weapons for Josh Allen to find a true number 2 threat. Brandon Beane addresses all of those for Ken Dorsey, solidifying no excuses. Built that offensive line. Dalton Kincaid, a true number 2 option. Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, Trent Sherford, Deontay Hardy, Gabe Davis in year 2, progressing. Khalil Shakir in year 2. You know, and then defensively, Sean McDermott, first time calling plays as a head coach, knowing this defense. We lose Tremaine Edmonds. Maybe that middle linebacker spot wasn't that big of a priority because we know Sean McDermott is going to get the most of this freaking defense. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit like, subscribe. Check the link in the bio. You guys could get new merch just like this. Buffalo Fan Shop we are partnered up with. Also, SeatGeek, you can get $20 off. Even like concert tickets, Bandits games, Bison's games, whatever you guys want. So like, subscribe, go Bills.